moonless night, the ancient house stood shrouded in an eerie silence, its silhouette barely discernible against the darkened sky. The worn-out wooden structure creaked and groaned as if whispering secrets long forgotten. A chilling breeze swept through the narrow hallways, carrying with it the faint scent of decaying wood and damp earth. This house, nestled deep within a remote village in the Japanese countryside, had a history that the locals dared not speak of. The night was heavy with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. The village itself was asleep, its inhabitants huddled in their homes, unaware of the sinister presence lurking at the edge of their peaceful existence. The house known as the House of Night Whispers had once been a grand estate, but now it stood as a ghostly reminder of a tragic past. Inside, the air was thick with an oppressive darkness. The flickering candlelight cast long, wavering shadows on the walls, giving life to grotesque shapes that seemed to dance in a macabre performance. Each step echoed through the empty rooms, amplifying the sense of isolation and abandonment. It was as if the house itself was alive, breathing in the fears of those who dared to enter. Mayuki, a young woman in her late 20s, stood at the entrance, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. She had heard the stories, the warnings, but something compelled her to uncover the truth hidden within these walls. Her dark hair framed her pale face, and her eyes, wide with trepidation, reflected the dim light. Beside her, Jun, her older brother, tried to mask his own apprehension. Tall and stoic, he had always been her protector. But tonight, the roles seemed to have reversed. "We shouldn't be here, Mayuki." Jun's voice was a hushed whisper, barely audible over the creaking floorboards. "But we have to know what happened to them," Mayuki replied, her voice trembling yet resolute. Their parents had disappeared without a trace a year ago, and the last place they were seen was this very house. They stepped inside, the door closing behind them with a soft thud that seemed to seal their fate. The corridors stretched out before them, dark and foreboding, leading to the heart of the house. Old portraits lined the walls, their eyes following the sublings with an unnerving intensity. Mayuki clutched a small flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the dilapidated interior. They moved cautiously, each step measured and deliberate. The floorboards groaned under their weight, as if protesting their intrusion. Mayuki's flashlight caught sight of a staircase leading to the second floor, its steps worn and uneven. A shiver ran down her spine as she recalled the stories of strange noises and ghostly apparitions that haunted these halls. "Stay close," Jun muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. They ascended the stairs, the atmosphere growing colder with each step. At the top, they were greeted by a long hallway, its end obscured by darkness. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper, peeling at the edges, revealing the bare wood beneath. Mayuki paused, her breath visible in the cold air. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jun nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. There it was again, a faint whispering, like a distant echo of voices long silenced. It seemed to come from the far end of the hall. They continued, drawn towards the source of the sound. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, filling the air with a sense of dread. Mayuki's heart raced as they reached a door, slightly ajar, at the end of the hall. The whispers seemed to emanate from within. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The room was dark, the air thick with an oppressive stillness. Her flashlight revealed a small, sparsely furnished space. In the center, an old wooden chest sat, covered in dust and cobwebs. The whispers seemed to surround them, echoing off the walls, growing more insistent. Jun stepped forward, his hand reaching for the chest. "Mayuki, help me with this," he said, his voice steady but tense. Together, they lifted the heavy lid, revealing a collection of old letters and photographs. Mayuki's eyes widened as she recognized the faces staring back at her. Their parents, younger and full of life, their smiles frozen in time. She picked up a letter, the paper yellowed with age. As she read, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening. The letter spoke of a curse, a darkness that had claimed the lives of those who dared to uncover its secrets. Mayuki's hands trembled as she realized the gravity of their situation. "We need to leave now," Jun said, his voice urgent. But as they turned to leave, the door slammed shut with a force that shook the room. The whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, screaming in a language they couldn't understand. Panic set in as they tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew colder, the darkness pressing in on them. Mayuki felt a presence, something malevolent, watching them. She could see it now, a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. "Jun, we have to find another way out," she cried, her voice barely audible over the din. They moved towards the window, but it was barred from the outside. The walls seemed to close in, the whispers growing louder, more frantic. In a moment of desperation, Jun grabbed a heavy candlestick from a nearby table and swung it at the door. The wood splintered, but the door held firm. Mayuki felt a cold hand brush against her shoulder, and she turned to see the shadowy figure looming closer. "We're not alone," she whispered, her voice filled with terror. Jun swung the candlestick again, and this time the door gave way. They stumbled into the hallway, the whispers still echoing in their ears. They ran, the darkness chasing them, the house seeming to come alive around them. The walls shook, the floorboards buckled, and the air was filled with an otherworldly wail. Mayuki could feel the presence closing in, its cold breath on the back of her neck. They reached the staircase, descending as fast as they could. But as they reached the bottom, the front door swung open on its own. A figure stood in the doorway, a woman with long, flowing hair and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. "You should not have come here," she said, her voice a blend of anger and sorrow. Mayuki and Jun froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. The woman stepped forward, her presence filling the room with a palpable sense of dread. "We didn't mean any harm," Mayuki said, her voice shaking. "We just wanted to know what happened to our parents." The woman's expression softened, but her eyes remained cold. "They sought the truth, just as you do," she said. "But some truths are better left buried." The room grew colder, the air heavy with an oppressive silence. Mayuki could feel the weight of the woman's words, the gravity of their situation sinking in. "Please let us go," Jun pleaded, his voice breaking. The woman sighed, a sound filled with centuries of sorrow. "You may leave," she said, "but the house will not let you forget." As she spoke, the front door creaked open wider, revealing the night beyond. Mayuki and Jun didn't hesitate. They ran, the whispers following them, the house seeming to close in on itself as they fled. Outside, the air was cool and fresh, the night sky a blanket of stars. They didn't stop running until they reached the village. Their hearts pounding, their breath ragged, they looked back, the house now a distant silhouette, its dark presence looming over the village. Mayuki knew that they had escaped, but the whispers would haunt them forever, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the House of Night Whispers. The village lay in an uneasy silence, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily upon Mayuki and Jun. They sat in their small living room, the dim light of a single lamp casting long shadows on the walls. The air was thick with tension, each creak of the house amplifying their already heightened nerves. Mayuki stared at the old photographs they had retrieved from the chest, her mind racing. Their parents had been smiling, their eyes full of life and hope. But now those images felt like a cruel mockery of their current situation. She could still hear the whispers, faint but persistent, like a distant echo that refused to fade. "We can't just leave it like this," Mayuki said, breaking the silence. Jun looked at her, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. "What do you mean? We barely made it out alive," he replied, his voice strained. "I know, but there's something we're missing," she insisted. "Something important. Those letters, the photographs, they must mean something." Jun sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right, but we need to be careful. That house, It's not normal. Mayuki nodded, her resolve hardening. We'll go back, but we'll be prepared this time. The next day, they gathered suppliers' flashlights, candles, and a few basic tools. They didn't speak much, each lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what they were about to do hung over them. A silent spectre that refused to be ignored. As night fell, they made their way back to the House of Night Whispers. The village was quiet, its inhabitants still unaware of the darkness that lurked at its edge. The house loomed ahead, its silhouette stark against the moonlit sky. They entered cautiously, the front door creaking open as if welcoming them back. The air inside was colder than before, and the oppressive silence was almost tangible. Mayuki's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing the familiar hallway and its faded portraits. They moved quickly, heading straight for the room at the end of the hall. The whispers began almost immediately, soft and insistent, growing louder with each step. Mayuki felt a chill run down her spine, but she pressed on. In the room, they found the chest just as they had left it. The letters and photographs lay scattered on the floor, as if someone had been through them in their absence. Mayuki picked up another letter, the paper crinkling in her trembling hands. As she read, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening. The letter spoke of a ritual, a way to appease the spirits that haunted the house. Mayuki's eyes widened as she realized the implications. "Jun, look at this," she said, handing him the letter. He read quickly, his expression growing more serious with each word. "So, our parents. They were trying to break the curse," Jun muttered. "But something went wrong." Mayuki nodded, her heart pounding. "We have to finish what they started. It's the only way." They gathered the letters and photographs, piecing together the fragments of the ritual. The instructions were vague, but they managed to decipher enough to form a plan. "We'll need to go to the basement," Mayuki said, her voice barely a whisper. Jun nodded, his face set with determination. "Let's do this." The entrance to the basement was hidden behind a heavy wooden door, its surface covered in strange symbols. Mayuki felt a wave of unease as they opened it, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. They made their way down, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was damp and musty, the walls lined with old shelves and forgotten relics. At the center of the room stood an altar, its surface covered in dust and cobwebs. "This must be it," Mayuki said, her voice trembling. They placed the letters and photographs on the altar, arranging them according to the instructions they had pieced together. As they lit the candles, the whispers grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of voices. Mayuki felt a cold presence behind her, and she turned to see the shadowy figure from before, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. "You dare to disturb us again?" The figure hissed, its voice a blend of anger and sorrow. Mayuki's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood her ground. "We're here to end this," she said, her voice firm. "We know about the ritual. We're going to finish what our parents started." The figure loomed closer, its form shifting and twisting in the candlelight. "You think you can escape the curse? You are fools." Jun stepped forward, holding the candlestick as a weapon. "We have to try," he said, his voice steady. "Leave us in peace." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the basement. "Peace? There is no peace here. Only darkness." Mayuki and Jun began the ritual, reciting the words they had found in the letters. The air grew colder, the shadows deepening, but they pressed on, determined to see it through. As they spoke the final words, the candles flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if the spirits were fighting to hold on. Mayuki felt a surge of energy, a cold wind that seemed to emanate from the altar. She could see the shadowy figure writhing, its form dissolving into the darkness. "You cannot escape," it hissed, its voice fading. "We will always be here." With a final, chilling scream, the figure vanished, the whispers dying down to a faint murmur. The air grew warmer, the oppressive darkness lifting. Mayuki and Jun stood in silence, Their hearts pounding, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They had done it. The curse was broken. As they made their way back up the stairs, the house seemed different. Its oppressive atmosphere lifted. The portraits on the walls no longer felt menacing, and the air was clear and fresh. Outside, the night was calm, the stars shining brightly in the sky. They walked back to the village, their steps light, the weight of the curse finally lifted from their shoulders. Back at their home, they sat in the living room. The old photographs and letters spread out before them. Mayuki felt a sense of closure, a peace she hadn't known in a long time. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with relief. John nodded, a small smile on his lips. "Yeah, we did." As they looked at the photographs of their parents, they knew that they had finally found the truth. The House of Night Whispers would haunt them no more. The village lay in the embrace of dawn, the first light casting long shadows across the silent streets. Mayuki and John had not slept. Their minds were too consumed by the night's harrowing events. The whispers of the house still echoed in their thoughts. Refusing to be silenced, Mayuki sat at the kitchen table, the old letters spread out before her. The faded ink and yellowed paper seemed to hold secrets. She was desperate to understand. John entered the room, carrying a tray with 2 cups of tea. He placed it on the table and sat across from her, his eyes weary but determined. "We need to figure out what happened to our parents," Mayuki said, her voice resolute. "They tried to break the curse, but why? And what went wrong?" John nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of a photograph. "Our parents were always cautious. If they attempted the ritual, they must have been desperate." Mayuki picked up one of the letters, reading the cryptic instructions once more. The ritual was supposed to appease the spirits, but something went wrong. There has to be more to this. As they pored over the documents, a sudden knock on the door startled them. They exchanged a glance, apprehension filling the air. John rose and went to the door, opening it cautiously. Standing on the doorstep was an elderly woman, her face lined with age, but her eyes sharp and clear. "I am Takako," she introduced herself. "I knew your parents. May I come in?" Mayuki gestured for her to enter, curiosity piqued. Takako sat at the table, her gaze falling on the letters and photographs. "I see you have found some of the truth," she said, her voice a soft murmur. "But there is much you do not know." Mayuki leaned forward, eager for answers. "Please, tell us everything." Takako nodded, taking a deep breath before beginning her tale. "Your parents were not the first to attempt breaking the curse. This house has a dark history, one that stretches back generations." She paused, her eyes distant as she recalled the past. The house was built by a wealthy landowner who dabbled in dark rituals. He sought to gain power by making a pact with malevolent spirits, but the spirits were treacherous, and they cursed the house and all who entered it. Mayuki felt a chill run down her spine. "So the whispers, they are the voices of those spirits?" Takako nodded solemnly. "Yes, the spirits are bound to the house, trapped in their own torment. They seek to draw others into their suffering." John frowned, his mind racing. "Our parents tried to free them. But why? What drove them to take such a risk?" Takako sighed. "Your mother discovered the curse while researching the history of the village. She believed that by breaking the curse, she could end the suffering of the spirits and bring peace to the village." Mayuki's heart ached at the thought of her mother's bravery. "But something went wrong," she said softly. Takako nodded. "Yes, the ritual requires great precision and strength of will. Any mistake can have dire consequences. Your parents were close, but the spirits resisted. They are desperate to hold on to the only existence they know." John looked at Takako, a question burning in his eyes. "Can the curse still be broken? Can we finish what our parents started?" Takako's eyes were filled with both sorrow and hope. "It is possible, but it will not be easy. The ritual must be completed, and the spirits must be convinced to move on. It will require courage, determination, and a deep understanding of the spirits' torment." Mayuki and Jun exchanged a glance, their resolve hardening. "We will do it," Mayuki said firmly. "For our parents and for the village." Takako nodded, a small smile on her lips. "Very well. I will help you. Together, we will end this." The day passed in a blur of preparations. Takako guided them through the steps of the ritual, explaining the significance of each element. They gathered the necessary items: candles, incense, and a ceremonial dagger that had been passed down through generations. As night fell, they made their way back to the House of Night Whispers. The village was eerily quiet, the air thick with anticipation. They entered the house, the familiar chills seeping into their bones. The whispers began almost immediately. A low murmur that filled the darkened halls. Takako led them to the basement where the altar stood waiting. They arranged the candles and incense, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the walls. Mayuki and Jun took their places beside the altar, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. Takako began the ritual, her voice steady and clear. As she chanted the ancient words, the air grew colder, the shadows deepening. But they pressed on, determined to see it through. As Takako's chant grew louder, the whispers intensified, filling the room with a cacophony of voices. Mayuki felt a cold hand brush against her shoulder, and she turned to see the shadowy figure looming behind her. "You think you can escape us?" the figure hissed, its voice filled with malice. Mayuki's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "We're here to end this," she said, her voice firm. "You will find peace." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the basement. "Peace? There is no peace for us. Only darkness." Takako's chant reached a crescendo, and the candles flared brighter. The shadowy figure writhed its form, twisting and contorting in the flickering light. "You cannot escape," it hissed, its voice fading. "We will always be here." With a final, chilling scream, the figure vanished, the whispers dying down to a faint murmur. The air grew warmer, the oppressive darkness lifting. Mayuki and Jun stood in silence, their hearts pounding, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They had done it. The curse was broken. Takako smiled, a look of relief on her face. "You have done well," she said softly. "The spirits are free." Mayuki felt a sense of closure, a peace she hadn't known in a long time. As they made their way back up the stairs, the house seemed different. Its oppressive atmosphere lifted. The portraits on the walls no longer felt menacing, and the air was clear and fresh. Outside, the night was calm, the stars shining brightly in the sky. They walked back to the village, their steps light, the weight of the curse finally lifted from their shoulders. Back at their home, they sat in the living room, the old photographs and letters spread out before them. Mayuki felt a sense of closure, a peace she hadn't known in a long time. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with relief. Jun nodded, a small smile on his lips. "Yeah, we did." As they looked at the photographs of their parents, they knew that they had finally found the truth. The House of Night Whispers would haunt them no more. However, a lingering unease settled in Mayuki's mind. Though they had broken the curse, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Takako's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Mayuki saw a flicker of concern. "Takako," Mayuki began cautiously, "is there something else we should know?" The elderly woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The curse is broken, but the spirits are not entirely at peace. There is one final step to ensure their complete release." Jun frowned. "What do we need to do?" Takako's gaze was steady, her voice a calm but urgent whisper. "We must perform a cleansing ritual at dawn at the place where the pact was made. Only then will the spirits be truly free." Mayuki felt a chill despite the warmth of the room. "Where is this place?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Takako's eyes darkened with memory. "It is an old shrine, hidden deep within the forest. Few know of its existence." Jun stood, determination etched on his face. "Then we go at dawn." As they prepared for this final task, A sense of foreboding settled over them. The night passed slowly, each minute stretching into an eternity. Finally, as the first light of dawn broke through the trees, they set out for the shrine. The forest was dense and dark, the path barely visible in the dim light. Takako led the way, her steps sure and unerring. Mayuki and Jun followed closely, their nerves taut with anticipation. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing. In the center stood an ancient shrine, its stones weathered by time. Takako began the cleansing ritual, her voice a low murmur as she chanted the sacred words. The air grew heavy with a palpable tension, the forest around them seeming to hold its breath. Mayuki and Jun watched, their hearts pounding in unison. As Takako's chant reached its peak, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, scattering leaves and dust. The ground trembled, and a low rumble echoed through the forest. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the wind died down, and a profound silence fell over the shrine. Takako turned to them, her face serene. "It is done. The spirits are free." Mayuki felt a wave of relief wash over her, the last remnants of fear dissipating. Jun nodded, a smile of gratitude on his lips. "Thank you, Takako." The elderly woman inclined her head, her eyes shining with a gentle light. "Your parents would be proud of you both." As they made their way back to the village, the first rays of the sun bathed the forest in a golden glow. For the first time in what felt like forever, Mayuki felt a true sense of peace. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. And though the House of Night Whispers would remain a part of their history, it no longer held any power over them. They were free, and the future lay open before them, filled with endless possibilities. The dawn light filtered through the dense canopy of trees, casting a soft, golden glow on the forest floor. Mayuki, Jun, and Takako moved with quiet determination, the weight of their task heavy on their shoulders. They had reached the ancient shrine where the final act of the ritual would take place, a place shrouded in history and mystery. The shrine stood in a small clearing, its stone structure covered in moss and ivy, giving it an otherworldly appearance. The air was still, filled with an eerie silence that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what was to come. Mayuki's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the urgency of their mission. Takako began preparing the altar, her movements precise and deliberate. She placed the ceremonial dagger in the center, surrounded by the candles and incense they had brought. The sun's rays gradually grew stronger, illuminating the scene with a soft, ethereal light. Mayuki and Jun took their positions, their eyes locked on Takako as she began to chant. The ancient words flowed from her lips, filling the air with a sense of solemnity and purpose. The temperature dropped suddenly, a chill settling over the clearing. As the chant continued, a low rumble began to emanate from the ground. The stones of the shrine seemed to vibrate, resonating with the power of Takako's words. Mayuki felt a cold breeze brush against her skin, bringing with it the faint whispers of the spirits they sought to release. From the shadows at the edge of the clearing, figures began to emerge. Ghostly apparitions, their forms, translucent and flickering, moved towards the shrine, their eyes, filled with sorrow and longing, fixed on the altar, where Takako continued her chant. Jun's grip tightened on the handle of the ceremonial dagger. He could feel the presence of the spirits, their pain and anger palpable in the air. He knew that they were close to the climax of the ritual, the moment when the spirits would be free or consumed by their torment. Suddenly, the leading spirit, a tall figure with hollow eyes, stepped forward. Its voice, a haunting whisper, echoed through the clearing. "Why do you seek to disturb us again? Have you not learned?" Mayuki stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We seek to free you, to end your suffering. We want to complete the ritual and bring peace to your souls." The spirit's eyes bore into hers, as if searching for the truth in her words. "For centuries, we have been trapped, bound to this place by a curse we did not choose. Can you truly end our torment?" Takako's chant grew louder, more insistent. The spirits around the clearing began to wail their cries, a mixture of hope and despair. The ground shook violently, the stones of the shrine cracking under the strain of the ritual's power. Jun stepped closer to the altar, raising the dagger high above his head. "We will finish what our parents started. We will set you free," he declared, his voice resolute. With a swift motion, he brought the dagger down, plunging it into the heart of the altar. A blinding light erupted from the point of contact, engulfing the clearing in a brilliant glow. The spirits screamed, their forms writhing in the intense light. Mayuki shielded her eyes, the brightness overwhelming her senses. She could feel the power of the ritual coursing through her, a force both terrifying and awe-inspiring. As the light began to fade, she opened her eyes to see the spirits slowly dissolving, their anguished expressions giving way to relief. The tall spirit turned to her one last time, its voice a gentle whisper. "Thank you," it said before vanishing into the light. The clearing fell silent, the air still and calm once more. Mayuki, Jun, and Takako stood in the aftermath, their bodies exhausted but their hearts light. The spirits were gone, their torment finally ended. They began to make their way back to the village, the weight of their task lifting with each step. The forest, once filled with an oppressive darkness, now felt alive and vibrant. Birds sang in the trees, and the scent of fresh earth filled the air. Back in the village, the residents greeted them with a mix of curiosity and relief. Word had spread quickly, and the villagers gathered to hear their story. Mayuki and Jun recounted their journey, the challenges they face, and the ultimate success of the ritual. As they spoke, Takako watched with a serene smile. She knew that the village would be at peace now, the curse lifted, and the spirits set free. Mayuki and Jun had proven their courage and determination, and their parents' legacy would live on. That night, the village celebrated, the air filled with laughter and joy. Mayuki and Jun sat together, watching the festivities with a sense of fulfillment. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. "Do you think the spirits have found peace?" Mayuki asked, her voice soft. Jun nodded, a gentle smile on his lips. "I believe they have, and I believe we have too." As the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the village, Mayuki felt a profound sense of closure. The House of Night Whispers was no longer a place of fear and sorrow. It was a part of their history, a story of courage and redemption. In the days that followed, life in the village returned to normal. The house at the end of the hall remained standing, but it no longer held the same dark presence. It was a reminder of the past, but also a symbol of the strength and resilience of those who had faced its horrors. Mayuki and Jun continued to live in the village, their bond unbroken by the trials they had faced. They knew that they had done something truly remarkable, something that would be remembered for generations. As the seasons changed and the years passed, the story of the House of Night Whispers became a legend, told and retold by the villagers. But for Mayuki and Jun, it was more than just a story. It was a testament to their love, their courage, and their unwavering determination to find the truth and bring peace to the souls of the lost. And so, as the sun set over the village, casting long shadows on the quiet streets, Mayuki and Jun stood together, knowing that they had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. The whispers had been silenced, and the house was finally at peace.